Welcome to Mommy's on a Call, your sacred space to laugh, learn, and feel like a real grown-up human for a hot minute. I'm Stephanie Uchima Carney, a mom of 3 under 6, serial entrepreneur, business strategist, and donut connoisseur, just trying to get through the day one cold cup of coffee at a time. I believe that with more intention, a positive mindset, and self-care, it is possible to thrive in motherhood, business, and life. My mission is to uncover the daily rituals, life lessons, real-life tactics, and favorite tools to inspire and empower you, mommy, to get the most out of life every single unpredictable day. So grab your headphones, tell your kids you're on the potty, and tune in weekly for some laughs, knowledge bombs, and plenty of real talk with real moms, and maybe a dad or two. Welcome to the Mommy Pod. Welcome back to Mommy's on a Call. Today I'm bringing on Betsy Fore. Betsy was named one of Forbes 30 under 30, BBC's 100 most inspiring women, and she's currently the co-founder of Tiny Organics, a nutrient-rich organic baby food company designed to build adventurous eaters from a young age. Betsy has over a decade of experience as an inventor, product founder, and CEO. But above all, she's the mama of a little boy named Sebastian, who is the inspiration behind launching Tiny Organics. So welcome, Betsy.
Thanks so much, Stephanie.
It's wonderful to have you. I wanted to start off by asking, what was your biggest mom win of the week?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. So my son and I go to the farmer's market every Saturday. I've actually been able to plant a garden with him this last year. He's just turning 3. And this past Saturday, we were there, and it was the first time in quite a while that they had a band. And it was 3 people playing saxophone, and our song came on as I was walking by. And it was just a special moment with me and him together where Somewhere Over the Rainbow started playing. And so we started dancing, and it was just like this beautiful, like you could never have planned it type of moment where it was like literally bringing a tear to my eyes as it was happening. But and you kind of think to yourself like, wow, like it's all worth it. You know, everything, you know, it's so hard, right? Like being a new parent. And I think there's just those like little moments that if you can lean into them and be truly present, right? Yeah, I think that was a definite win. And he kept talking about it after too, that we like heard our song. And, you know, it's what I always sing to him at bath time.
That's so cute.
Really sweet. Yeah.
Oh, and so actually give me a little bit about your family context. What are the roles you and your partner play? Just your family dynamics at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, my partner, Patrick, and I have been together for like 16 years now.
Wow.
And so we celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary this year. Yeah, little Sebastian, he was a miracle. I mean, I couldn't have had a baby initially. I had to go through really invasive surgery for fibroids, which are most prevalent in African American and Native American women, which is why my mom and my grandma and everyone on the reservation has struggled with this. And so I kind of had some context there, but kind of was not prepared for that surgery because it is a C-section, but you don't have a baby afterwards, right? However, because that happened, I was then able to get pregnant and have Sebi. So he is our little, miracle. And as you know, Stephanie, I'm currently going through IVF to try to have another. And so that's also a roller coaster. Just started everything a couple weeks ago. And, you know, on top of running our companies, right? And sort of
No. Well, I want to hear more about like doing both of those and things. So with your first, was that natural? Was that IUI? Was that IVF?
That was natural. So thankfully, because I'd had the surgery, I was sort of primed and I was younger at that point as well. So that, we were totally blessed. And, you know, because he was also a planned C-section because of my previous surgery. So of course, in typical Virgo fashion, he came right on time. September 6th, you know, to the minute, like when he was meant to arrive. I was trying to get it scheduled for September 4th because that's Beyonce's birthday, but then everything was booked out anyway.
Don't you love that? So I had 3 C-sections and I scheduled each of them except for only one of the 3 came on their scheduled date. So,
oh my goodness.
I know.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay.
One of them I wanted. So my last one was February 3rd, 2020. And I actually wanted her on February 2nd because I wanted it to be 2220. But then it had to be a Monday because they don't do C-sections on Sundays. So whatever. But it's kind of, it's interesting to like plan your birthday, but then you never know.
Totally.
Babies do what they want to do. So were you, I guess, at the time when you had your first kid, where were you working? What were you doing? Because I mean,
Yes.
Forbes 30 under 30, like all of these, titles and stuff. Where were you? How did you earn these? What's your background?
Yeah, definitely. So that was with my previous company I'd founded that I was honored with Forbes 30 under 30, but backing way, way up. So I actually grew up in the countryside building motorcycles. My dad, who's a motocross racer and probably my greatest inspiration in a lot of ways throughout life. He and I were always building things. And when I went to uni, I figured out, oh, wow. And it was my first time I'd ever been to a big city. I went to Chicago. And I figured out like, oh, I could study industrial design and engineering and actually continue to get to build things, right? So Forbes 30 under 30, I actually got from manufacturing and industry because that's my background.
Although I really the only female in all of that.
Yes, exactly. So when I became a toy inventor after university, which is just like so surreal that this happened, but Chicago was really a hub for it. I was the youngest by far and one of two women inventors in the whole firm. And I was able to sell my concepts to George Lucas for Star Wars, Mattel for Polly Pocket, did work on WWE, The Game of Life. It was so much fun. And I thought, wow, it can't get better than this, right? Because you got to run your little startup within this innovation firm and by creating everything by hand. So actually, this was before I was able to convince him to get a CNC machine. We did everything with lathe, mill, mold room, back form, actually building stuff, which is kind of a lost art nowadays. And I'm just so grateful. I feel like I was the last generation to really enjoy that. And then I had read about, my partner, Patrick, I had mentioned, and I knew that his family's from Poland originally. And so we knew he wanted to live in Europe for a bit. And I had heard about a guy, Mike Lacton-Smith, who was building what was fast becoming one of the top kids digital brands in London. There were still only a few people there at the time at our old offices, but I flew out and not knowing anyone, had never been, in the country before. I mean, it's sort of surreal, and not knowing anyone, walked in and very long story, but by the fifth time he was like, okay, let her in. And we chatted for over 2 hours. He hired me on the spot to lead all of product. So that was from physical and the digital side, which was so incredible. And it really opened my world to like, wow, okay, this is where it's all sort of headed. And we were able to build the company to over 300 people, over 100 million registered users online. Moshi Monsters was like the Pokemon of the UK. And Michael actually was founding Calm, the meditation app, during that same time. So it was really fun to get to see him go through that next journey in his story as well. But it was during that time I was doing hackathons on the weekends to kind of scratch that building, like the builder itch, because I was only able to like lead, the teams at that point. And I invented the first Fitbit for dogs. So it was for my dog Whiskey. And this was my previous company I founded because he was overweight and I tried everything to get him to lose the weight. And finally built this, thought I have a Fitbit for myself. Why don't I have one for him? And over the course of a few months, he did begin to lose weight. And then he got to his goal weight because of the device, which can extend his life up to 2 years. So I knew, okay, if I can extend the life of my dog, like I want to bring this to the masses, because at that time, over half of dogs were overweight or obese in UK and US. And so I did found the company in London. So the headquarters were there. We launched at Harrods initially, which was so much fun with some celebrities, and then Colette for Paris Fashion Week when that was still around, and then over to Bloomingdale's in Manhattan. And we built everything in house. We didn't buy anything, off. It was actually the full stack of hardware we built. So do you
have any patents yourself or anything? Did you? Wow.
So yes. And on the bow tie as well, we have a design patent for, because it was the number one accessory for any dog, right? It's like a cute little bow tie. And so we're like, okay, we want to own that from the tech perspective. So the bow tie would tell you in real time, is your dog sleeping, running, playing, dreaming even, and what other dogs have they met up with that day, and who's top dog, who's got the most exercise and everything.
And what was this company called? What was the name?
My previous company is Wonder Minto, and our hero product is Wonder Woof. Yeah. So it was such a magical journey for about 8 years. I built Wonder Woof, and we had the best retail traction of any pet wearable in the US. So we launched every Best Buy on NCAP, every Petco, every Urban Outfitters. And it was such a wild ride, because I never even had a sales director. So I was like the one doing all this. There was a lot of learnings. I'll never be a sole founder again. That was like, it's just taking on too much, especially when you're running this many different departments within the company. So I was going to Hong Kong every other month for our product team there, on the hardware side as well. And yeah, just a ton of learnings for this next company that I founded. And to your original point, Stephanie, like, it was actually whilst getting pregnant with Sebastian and trying to exit Wonder Woof that Sophia and I came together to build Tiny. And so he was I was 8 months pregnant when we were in Prospect Park handing out tiny cups to complete strangers. And obviously this was pre-pandemic, but hundreds of families were feeding Tiny to their babies. And we weren't even like launched yet or a real brand. And Sebi was then born like very soon thereafter. And he's been raised on Tiny ever since he was 5 months old. He every single day has been eating Tiny and prefers it. It's kind of like his nostalgia. Mine was McDonald's. When I was growing up, that was my first words, McDonald's Coke fry, which is like really idiot. But like, the all-American diet.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. I have quite a few questions. Okay, number one, where did you grow up exactly?
Yeah. So in the middle of Illinois in a very rural country town. Yeah.
And you said you're like part Native American too.
Yes. So my family's Turtle Mountain Chippewa from North Dakota reservation. Yeah. I actually am getting up there in the next couple of months and got to see everyone this past week too for a family reunion. But yes. And actually on our reservation, there's not there, when my mom was growing up there was no access to WIC even, which is really the North Star for Tiny is how can we become an accessible household name, but to all communities across the nation. And so over half of babies in America are fed on the food stamp for women, infant, and children called WIC. And it is our, North Star to be the first organic whole food offering on there. Wow. So that's definitely part of the story. And actually
I had no idea any of that. I did not know you were part Native American, or did you grow up on the reservation, or you were just...
My mom did. Yes. Okay. And I grew up going every year. Yes. So my family is still there. And I have many, I was just with my auntie she's the director of the hospital where my mom was born on the res. And then my other auntie who just passed this last year, she founded our university there as well. So incredible, powerful women, who have kind of paved the way and been a total inspiration in terms of our tribe. And including my mom. So definitely feel that's just a strong core part of who I am and why I want to bring accessibility.
To go to university after and then do all this, that's wow.
Yes. I know it's pretty wild because I came from a place where most folks are still in that little country town. I had never been to a big city until I went to Chicago to go to university, so it definitely felt like, just a wild ride, really, to think what you could accomplish if you can just sort of believe in yourself, keep pushing yourself forward, right? Because nothing was kind of, nothing comes easy in life. But I think if you have that hard work and that passion, that dedication, that you can just get leaps and bounds so far, right? So I'm really grateful for that.
I was going to say, so then leading into your dog company, so you were inspired because of your own dog to create this. Did you create the digital site also? Or how did you get the expertise? You were a hardware person, an engineer. So you created this Fitbit, but building a team or doing that, how did you find the people to bring that idea to real life conception? Or who were the people that you hired first?
Well, I think that's the most important job of any CEO is bringing on the team and really trying, to elevate them, empower them, and be that visionary that they want to work with, right? Because for me, it was definitely bringing on my CTO initially, the only reason that I was able to launch Wonderwoof. And then we brought on our director of hardware. Yes, we did everything in-house. And I just always hired people that were smarter than me, that knew more. I'm still doing that to this day, right? Something else I did in the very beginning was bring on this really big board of advisors. And that was what I translated to Tiny as well, which has served us so well. These folks that have already been in the industry for years, because obviously I don't have a food background, right? So, coming at it from that understanding and them really co-building it with us has made a big, big difference. And so, I think it's all about trying to rally around the vision when you get the right folks around the table, right? To build it, which is why, it's just so many learnings building Wonderwoof. And one of them was that I wanted to be a co-founder for this next one.
Yeah. Which is my question is, so you said you're I never want to be a solo founder anymore. Yeah, so you wanted to be a co-founder. I guess a couple questions. One, how did you know it was time to move away from the dog company to build this next company?
Yes.
And two, how did you find your co-founder? What were you, how did you know Sophia? And then why did you pick her? And also, why do you want a co-founder?
Yes. Great question, Stephanie. Definitely. So I knew it was time because we had been approached over 2 years prior for acquisition because our biggest competitor, Whistle, was acquired by Mars and SF. So you can probably guess who was courting us at that point. And I had never even dreamt of selling. I was having so much fun building Wonder Wolf. And then it was like, once I was proposed with this, opportunity, it was like, okay, maybe I'm going to start thinking that way. And then ultimately in the end, it wound up that we didn't even go with that acquisition, but it was an exit. And so it wasn't something that it made it where I was able to step away, remain on the board. And, it wasn't like I was going to stay on and build the next, pet tech lab for the next 5 years, which was kind of part of that deal as well, because I knew I wanted to, I'm truly an inventor at heart. And I knew I wanted to build, a childhood nutrition, or not nutrition company, but just a childhood company at that point. And so when Sophia and I had met originally, I was speaking at Maker Faire in New York, and we had a mutual friend there. And this was like maybe 2 years prior to us actually coming together again at a rooftop party, 4th of July. So almost, yeah,
Wow.
exactly, I guess 4 years ago in 2017, where it was just like when you meet someone and you're like, it happens very few times in your life, right? But like, it's just like sparks. It's like, oh my gosh, this idea that she had told me she always wanted to found a children company, a childhood
And is she
company.
a mom? I forgot. Is she a
No,
mom? Okay.
yeah, so not yet, but she was born in the Finnish baby box, and she has had this lifelong dream to kind of, bring that to the US. And then when we came around what we were going to do together, it was really, how do we make the biggest impact on childhood development? And so that's how we eventually got to nutrition. But when I had so many learnings from building the first time around, that I knew I didn't want to self-fund the company again. Like for the first couple of years, I did go on to raise millions for Wonder Wolf as well. But I knew that this time I wanted to align myself with, really as an EIR, with a VC firm that felt super aligned with my values and the mission. And ultimately, after, chatting with quite a few around New York, made the decision to go with Human Ventures. And so we absolutely love Heather. She's still on our board to this day. And we really got to co-build it with them from the beginning. And that's when, all these exciting insights happened around bringing advisors around the table and realizing that the biggest impact we could have on a child's life was what they're putting in their body, and that we could help shape their gut health so that they could grow up to be the healthiest versions of themselves. Because what was really stunning to us is that when we started digging into the research, we realized baby food is a completely invented category in the 1920s. So prior to that, babies were just eating real whole food, right? It was like, how we were born to eat. And yet, with these canned purees, a lot of times those were having, even when I was eating them in the 80s, added sugar and salt put in for the parents' palate as well. And so when a baby's coming off of breast milk, which is already sweet, or even formula for that matter, they are then already prone to have a sugary forward palate. So if you're not introducing the savory flavors of vegetables in particular from the very beginning, then it can make it just so much harder to develop those taste preferences as the child grows. And so we know of, and in all of our research we've done, there's a period in a person's life at the age of 4 to 7 months old. So none of us remember it, right? But it's called the flavor window. And that is when a person is more keen to try new flavors than they ever will be their entire life. And so if you can capture a child at that point and be able to introduce them to vegetables, they could actually get a sense for savory over sugary, or even
That's
just
interesting. I feel like I was going to say, I think I missed that window for all 3 kids because unfortunately, well, and then I think you said 4 to 7 months. In America, a lot of times they say, don't start till 6 months, don't start, feeding. And then you start off with like the cereals or like the liquidy kind of stuff, or I would puree my own kind of fruits and vegetables, but that only leaves like a short window. Cause if you start at like 6 months and then you do the whole, like, we're going to introduce one food at a time, like every week. Cause especially as a first time mom, you are afraid of all the allergies and things.
Absolutely. And the choking hazard of it being like a baby-led weaning type of feeding.
I was actually curious. Tiny Organics, I know, because we love your food. It is not pureed or anything. And so there are other companies that do purees. Do you puree the Tiny Organics, or do you just give them whole and do baby-led weaning from the very beginning?
Exactly. So you can do it both ways. We never mom shame if a mom does want to start with purees at first, of course, but eventually they will need to start solids. The way that we've built Tiny is that my son started at 5 months old, where he was able to grab it. He didn't have teeth at that point, but because it's perfectly steamed, it will just disintegrate in the child's mouth, even though they're able to pick it up and see, oh, that's a broccoli, that's a carrot, right? And so I think that's part of this, is that you're creating kind of these gorgeous variety of flavors as well, with exposing children to other cultures through through food from around the world. So we have Valencian paella, coconut curry, ratatouille. We're creating a Native American one, the Three Sisters now, with my cousin who's a chef. And, so we're trying to expose children in a way where they will crave these savory flavors as they grow. So obviously my son being a toddler now can still enjoy Tiny as a healthy side or a snack, or the oatmeals as a full breakfast as well. And we do have product line extensions coming out too. But I think for us, it's definitely about the mom or dad who wants to try baby-led weaning. We're meeting them there, and we're giving them that opportunity to feed this whole real food. So you can actually see what each vegetable is. And 80% of our cups are all vegetable, as well as 80 of our 100 first flavors are all savory. So for us, when we looked at the market, only 10% of children are getting enough vegetables. And majority of that is through French fries. And this is for all children under the age of 5. So we thought, right, this is a massive vegetable deficiency intake, right? That's like across all of America. And how can we really just help make vegetables fun and accessible in a friendly way? And so that's been definitely our life's work and mission. But I think when exactly your point, Stephanie, when you're introducing those first foods, it is really nerve-wracking, like, unless it's just about them sort of like putting it on their mouth and trying to get that taste for it, which is really at the 4 to 7 month mark, what you'd mostly be doing, because they can eat it with their hands unlike a puree, right? Then there is that fun bit of playfulness that can happen too. Obviously it's a big mess as well, but that fun bit of playfulness that you just don't get when you're spoon feeding a child, right? Because it's allowing them to build this independence, that much like the Montessori movement as well, where they can become independent eaters and thinkers for life.
So I want to go back to when you met Sophia. Were you pregnant at the time? Were you in the process or anything? So, because I guess my question is, most people, they become a mom, they come up with these ideas, but like, it's hard to execute. And I know there are a lot of moms out there who are like, I wish I could solve this problem. I wish I can. But you have a baby and you're like, I don't know how to even do this. How do I raise capital, or how do I find the time? So how was the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey for this company once you became a mom?
Right. So I think that was a big part of me wanting to partner with Sophia as co-CEOs, because I knew I was going to have to step away, even if it was just for a few weeks. And we were able to bring our COO, Carolyn, on the night before I delivered Sebi as well, who came to us from Beyond Meat, has been with us for 3 years now and is an absolute rock star. Only reason we're here today as well as with Carolyn. And so I think for me, it was really, figuring out, because something I learned along the way when building these companies, and even like seeing Michael build Calm and Mashi Monsters prior, is like, it's like that proverb, right? Like, if you want to go far, go together, right? So you can only do so much. And I understand the beginning of a career, especially when you're first starting out, you do kind of want to say, this is mine, right? And like, here's what I'm building and I'm doing this, but you can, I am like proof that you can go so much farther if you can just spread the love, if you can just bring people around you and empower them to own it and feel that it's their baby too. And so I think by doing that, that's the only reason I was able to be a full-time mom and full-time co-CEO, is because I had these phenomenal women that were supporting me like in that. And, and I hope to do for them as well, right? That because I actually don't believe that women can have it all. I don't think that you can be like the perfect, mom and CEO or fundraiser or whatever it is. Like, I think you have to bring those people around you that can kind of do it with you, right? Like, there's a reason that there's that, again, cliche, but it takes a village. Like, there's a reason that came to be, and why we just don't have it now. And we're all living in these silos. It's like, we at least have the opportunity as women to say like, okay, we're actually going to create, we're going to be the change we want to see, where we can create those environments, right, around us of these women elevating other women, or of course, Raul, we just brought on our director of engineering this morning, and our first man, we're so excited. Yeah. So, and really thrilled there. And so of course, like, it can be, men and women elevating each other. Absolutely. But I think like there's this really special magic that happens when women can come together and like support each other in the sense of motherhood as well, and what that means for, your company. So my advice would definitely be to like, anything that you're kind of lacking. So Sophia leads marketing and I lead product.
I was going to ask, what are your roles in the founders?
Yes.
Because you can't be the same or else it won't
Exactly.
work. So,
yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so previously, even though he wasn't a co-founder, it was my CTO, right, of my past company, the reason I was able to get it off the ground. And so I think more than anything is like, when you have this idea and this vision, is figuring out how to articulate that, right, to the people around you, and like creating that sort of like buzz, right? To say like, oh, well, I could partner with you on that. And like, let's do it together, and just being really like hacky with it and like figuring it out. And sort of, that's my favorite part, is like the scrappiness, the 0 to 1 of it. And so I think like because that creates momentum in itself, right? When you're able to build from the earliest days with those people around you. And it just means that you actually can execute on something, because I could never do this, alone, or even dream of it, because I wasn't in food prior, right? I knew the technology piece, and I was able to build that, just given, the great experience with Wonder Wolf and building that database. But it wasn't, I didn't know the first thing about food other than being a
how did you,
vegetarian.
I was going to say, did you like hire nutritionists? Like how did you build that side when you came up with an idea? You're like, okay, we want to do something in the kids space. You agreed on food, but you didn't have a Sebi yet. And so you didn't quite even know, like, what do kids like to eat? Was like one of your first hires, like how did you come up with this menu and palette? Yes. And did you taste test also yourself?
Absolutely. Yes. And so our first person we brought on was our neonatal nutritionist, Priscilla Barr, who's been at NYU for over a decade. She's now a mom as well. But she's helped us through kind of all those, the way our executive chef Maria has created all the recipes, that they are nutritionally dense. And then from the very beginning, even prior to launch, we partner with Tufts School of Nutrition and Policy. So the dean, Dariush Masafarian, has only ever come on to science-based and not consumer-facing companies prior, but he actually came on to our scientific advisory board. And so just so honored to have his involvement. And the reason for that, and the reason he wanted to get involved, is because we showed him our bill of materials for the foods themselves. And it was like, okay, that's great. Now where are the nutritional panels? It's like, well, this is the nutritional panel. There is nothing added. There's no added sugar. There's no added salt. Even the oat milk we make from scratch, right? So it's like, it's literally as clean as it gets. And I think he was just so blown away and so excited about that reality of like feeding children real whole foods that aren't like totally processed or even pureed, right? That we were able to get him on board. So again, to that point of like, can you get these advisors around you that actually know so much more, right? Around the table. But then equally, what we did is had 100 founding families in Park Slope, Brooklyn. So we sent one email out to the Park Slope parent group. We got hundreds of inbounds within a matter of hours. So we had to
and what did that email say? I'm curious.
Yes. So at that point, we had partnered with Human Ventures already. So it did say, we always go back to that email actually, because it's like, oh my gosh, what was like the magic here? But it was this idea that they're a founding family and that they're going to be building the product roadmap with us, which they did, right? So it was also the VC back thing, and I'm sure that was part of it too, being in Brooklyn. But I really believe that it's because there are so many families out there, and moms in particular, that are saying like, okay, I do want to like make an impact. I do want to do something, for childhood development even, right? And so a lot of these moms, they're still with us to this day, that we still do the recipe testing with them. And we've like been to their homes, because this was pre-pandemic. There's this great story when I was 8 months pregnant in 90-degree heat, where we were wheeling out these blue unmarked coolers into Prospect Park, and Sophia and I were handing them out. So total strangers, they were feeding their babies right there. And that's when we knew we have a white space here that hasn't been, tapped into, because it's only purees available currently. And so what we did is we went into their homes. We saw they were using the product of all 100 founding families. We then made adjustments. So each of the recipes, we tested at least 5 different versions of those 12 hero SKUs that we launched with. This was for a full year prior to us going to market. And then we got insights in the packaging where moms were saying, we don't want to put more plastic into the world, right? So you're vegan, which is great for animal, rights, and of course, like, and even the environment as well. But we want to be better for the planet, right? And not put more plastic out there. So we actually re-engineered our whole, like what we were planning to launch for our supply chain to make it totally plastic free, so that we could say, and we are going with the foil tops as well. So we could say like, okay, we're going to be the first food D2C company to do that, which is why we were able to partner with Plastic Pollution Coalition. But that was a direct feedback from our founding families on it. And
I think that's such an important like point in general, is that you had these founding families and you tested your product. I think so many times that we come with these ideas and we're like, yes, it's going to work. And then you put it to market and all of a sudden it's maybe a flop and you didn't test and iterate. So I love that you said you did it first with 100 and then you brought it to market almost a year later with all the feedback from like real moms.
Exactly. But that's what's so cool, Stephanie, is like that created, we always say there's almost no more viral word of mouth than that of a mom who's convinced. And that created this ripple effect, at least in the Northeast, with those moms where they started talking and said, you have to try this. And so quite quickly, 100 became 1,000, became 10,000, and so in all the reason we were able to recently close our Series A round of funding so quickly, just over 18 months after we had launched, is because the numbers speak for themselves. We actually have majority of our growth coming from organic word of mouth, right? So this isn't
so you're not paying the big bucks for the marketing.
Exactly. So it's like, we were so stealth for so long. I mean, you're looking at the entire product team on this call. My co-CEO, Sophia, is the whole marketing team. We were a group of 10 women that were building this, over this time. And some of them were part-time. And so for us, that's always been really important too, is that over half our investors and over half our board are women, as well as diverse. Because again, we have to be that change that we want to see and bring about. But definitely it feels like, it created a life of its own by having that organic growth, right? That I think is just magic, because people really connect with the product and they really believe in it and it works. Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about the early stages of you becoming a mom. So you're pregnant, you have this, you're super motivated about the company, and then you have a baby. And sometimes, things change within us. And I know Tiny is your other baby. So
Yes.
It's like, how did you kind of structure your time between the
Right.
two? And did you hire help at home? What did that look like? And then emotionally, what went on in your head? And how did you structure that with your partner?
So I was in New York City at the time with no family around. And we actually were so scrappy. And I had done this with Wonder Wolf as well, where I was like so scrappy. All my employees were living better, right, than me. So it was something where we felt like we couldn't even really get help. So I was having to stay home. Sometimes my mother-in-law would fly out. And I just remember, because I really, really struggled with breastfeeding, I actually had to go to the emergency room 2 days after bringing him home. And I did stick with it. I don't think I enjoyed a single minute of it, honestly, but I stuck with it. And I think that learning of the cluster feeding, right? Of just feeling totally helpless and I didn't have any other mom friends either. So it was just okay, we need to create this community ASAP, right? And Tiny to try to, bring moms together, because it is so lonely. And I think the only way I was able to do it is because of, again, my co-CEO, Sophia, being, sorry, my little son, Sebastian here right now. I want an interview, baby boy. Where's Babsha? My mother-in-law is watching. Oh, okay.
It's okay. Mommy's on a call is the name of the podcast.
Exactly. Mommy's on a call. Oh, this is my friend Stephanie. Okay, precious. Can you go and see what Daddy's doing right now? Why don't we go check? Okay. Hopefully he's not in a meeting too. Sorry, Stephanie.
Oh gosh, no worries. So, okay. So I was curious about, say even the roles your partner, husband, he's your husband, I assume.
Yes.
And you played in, raising Sebi while you were building the company. Was your husband full-time working? What did that look like? Okay.
So he took off, I think it was 2 weeks initially. And then we were trying to space it out where it was kind of a few days here, a few days there. But I was having to just work from home. Actually, when Sebi was 6 weeks old, or was it 4 weeks? Now I can't recall. But I went to another Prospect Park drop-off where my COO Carolyn was there with Sophia this time. And we have this beautiful picture of him just being so incredibly tiny. But I wanted to get back on it right away. I remember having this really internal struggle. Even when Sophia came to the hospital to meet Sebi on that very first day, I was even after C-section, sat up in bed, okay, how did that meeting go? Right. And I still know which meeting it was, that I was asking about and stuff. And it was just that's so crazy that I wasn't able. And so I think in a lot of ways, it was I wanted so badly to be working again that I felt I was in this, honestly, depression. I went through when, with the cluster feeding and feeling I just can't do it all. I can't, be there for the company. We hadn't officially launched yet. So I think that helped, but it was still such a struggle. And looking back, it was oh my gosh, I should have figured out. And now I have, right? Because we have our Series A. So we figured out how we can do all the benefits that we would want to see for working moms for the future and to be that change. We're figuring all of that out so that we can, and we have a handbook now with the best family care benefits and family planning benefits that I've ever seen of any company. So I'm really thrilled about that. But at the time when you're in the very beginning of it, we hadn't even closed our seed round. It was just really, really hard. Yeah.
And actually, really that was a question you mentioned. You never wanted to self-fund again. So this one, you were an EIR. You said you were an EIR at Ventures. How did you even have a product yet? Or did you just have a concept or idea when you were pitching?
when we went in, so Human Ventures, it was a little bit different because they wanted to partner with second-time founders at that point that didn't have a fully fleshed out idea. So when I first met with them, it was like, oh, I actually had a couple ideas of what I thought like would work in the childhood development space that then wound up pivoting to nutrition quite quickly after we joined. But yeah, so I think it was a little bit different. Yeah, with that. And, I did go on to raise money for Wonder Wolf as well. And not to say I would never self-fund, I have with Tiny as well, but just wouldn't fully do that again. Like, cause I think there's so much joy that you can get from partnering with the right investors, right? That really believe in the vision, the mission. It can like truly come together and make it just so much greater and bigger, right? Than anything. And so we've just been totally blessed with an incredible board for the past 2 years that they've actually become my closest friends, and everything. It's a pretty big board too, especially for our stage, but just phenomenal people that like want to see us win and want to get Tiny to all families, right? Across America. So I think like, it's a little like maybe a little bit different with the EIR like role that we took initially. There.
So I know you mentioned a lot of things you learned from Wonder Wolf, but now that you've closed your Series A and you're on your next company, what do you think is like the top or takeaway or lesson learned that you can give to other maybe entrepreneurs out there who are in the trenches right now? What would be your number one thing after all of this?
Yes, it's definitely that if you can believe in something enough, you can convince like those folks around you and figure out what it is that like excites you and keeps you up at night, right? Because it might be something that you weren't even expecting, right? That you're just like can't stop thinking about. And then try to wonder, okay, in the lens of truly trying to like help humanity, what would this look like, right? And like, how could this become something kind of so much bigger than me? And then if you can rally yourself around that vision, I think you can get others on board with you. And that to me, it just creates this energy in the world that can like almost be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? In a lot of ways. It's like, if you believe it, if you tell yourself something, you become it. Like, I really, really believe that. And I know it's been true in my life. And so I think just don't stop believing, like truly it's really like
Q Journey song right now.
Yes, exactly. Right now.
Well, I actually was wondering, since you worked with the founder of Calm, do you have any like self-care practices, meditation practices that you do daily for yourself to help you kind of be bigger than yourself and also to help you balance motherhood and entrepreneurship?
So I have taught Sebastian breathing techniques. So we do those together before bed every night. And then when we're both feeling wound up or if he's really wound up, then we'll do them as well. And so just trying to, tell him like meditation is like a normal part of life. And we do have our own kind of prayer that we say before dinner every night, because that might be one of the only moments we're all together, right? And just like that time of really gratitude and appreciation. I think when you're sharing in that, it's hard not to be happy at that point, right? Like, well, even with a toddler in general, because they're just so, they're enthralled with everything they're doing. They're just so in the present that it's like brings you into it in a way that unlike almost anything else does, right? And it's, so I think just like that grateful heart, right? Like throughout has been a common thread, like with my family. And definitely I always do my calm and I try to every day. And, sometimes it's every week or every other day, but that has helped tremendously just to build it in as a 10-minute practice that can really refocus you.
What time do you wake up in the morning?
Well, so I'm running on 2 hours of sleep right now, which is why I might sound a little bit delusional because Sebby just started coming into our bed at night and I can't figure out how to, because we don't want to do the cry it out or anything, and then he'll just like, I don't think he's meaning to, but he'll just like kick me all night long. And so I'm like, okay, can't sleep. It's not scalable. If you have any tips, Stephanie, let me know. But I'm like,
did you just switch him into like a regular bed or is there anything that has spurred this?
We were away for a week from him traveling. And I think when he was with my parents, I think he just got used to that like comfort of, I don't have to sleep in my toddler bed anymore, even though I've been in there for months, right? Like I can come in and like have a cuddle and like that comfort. Yeah. So it just feels like he just never wants to, when he is back in his toddler bed now, he will fall asleep there. But then immediately, as soon as he's like, because he's a light sleeper, as soon as he's woken up, then he'll come in. But yeah, so I definitely feel like.
I was going to say, unfortunately, it's a little bit of tough love where then when they come in, you get out of bed and it's hard for you as a parent because you're like, I just want to stay and sleep. And it's so easy to just pick them up and throw them in bed, kind of weird comparison. But I know a lot of people who have their dog sleep in their bed and then they get a new dog and they're like, never again, because it disrupts your sleep. So unfortunately, the best thing is just pick them up, walk them back to their room, put them back in bed, and you just got to keep repeating it. It's kind of one of those things that unfortunately after the 100th time, finally, maybe they'll lay down, but like, you don't want them to cry and get distressed, like you're abandoning them, but it's like, they'll like, mommy loves you, but you know, this is your bed. You need to sleep here. Like, this is mommy and daddy's space, and like walk them back, lay with them, maybe, you know, whatever, pet their head, like
their back,
rub their back, and then leave. And if they come right back again, like, this is mommy and daddy's space. This is yours. Like, do you need like a cuddly? Do you need this? Like, what would you like to sleep with?
Tonight,
give them some choices.
Gosh, that's good advice. Yeah.
It's so tiring though. And I know how to, like, so many times I would have to walk back, but it's like, you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. So you let them sleep in your bed one night, and then a second night, and then all of a sudden 2 years later. Now, again, I do what's best for you. That's what I say for all parents. Like, if you want your kids to sleep in your bed, that's totally fine. I know people who have 3 kids sleeping in their king bed with them. Like, and again, like, no judgment. That's what they prefer. But if you personally don't want that, and if it's harming you, then my suggestion would be that gentle and calm, not cry it up, not be mean. Like, just every time, it's like one of those things you just kindly guide them, you know, either carry them or guide them.
I'm trying it tonight.
Yes. And then just be clear. It's like, it's like with anything, be clear with your boundaries. So if, you know, if you want him in your bed, that's totally fine. And that's a boundary you're willing to keep. But if you don't, then be strong on your boundaries, firm, but kind.
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's such good advice. Thank you, Stephanie.
Well, to wrap things up, I want to ask you, what is a superpower that you gained once you became a mom that makes you better in either business or life?
Absolutely, patience. Absolutely. So I would say I've always been a woman of action. Like, so, you know, do, and then figure it out, you know, later, or ask for forgiveness later type of thing. And and that has served me well in the entrepreneurial journey, but absolutely patience, because as we know, as parents, right, everything, it just feels like, okay, learning it again and again and again, but also just finding those like quiet moments of like, wait a minute, when you're really still in this like patience, it is so beautiful, and it unlocks this other world in a way that like you weren't kind of anticipating. At least that's how it kind of felt, for me. And so I think it's really served me well as I've built the team as well, and just like having more grace with everyone and figuring out, you know, how we can really do it together in a timely manner, but not one that's like, okay, let's just run. Like, you know, let's just figure it out as we go. Let's run for this. But so definitely patience.
Do you think that's helped you with Tiny also, just build a different type of company?
Absolutely. I honestly, I think if I weren't a mom, I wouldn't have that same like conviction of seeing my son absolutely love vegetables the way that Sebi does because of it. Like, I believe so much because I've seen it like work, and I know. So I also think like there's just that really like precious thing between a mother and her child, right? That you can't even really describe it, right? But it's like this unspoken thing. And the fact that with our 100 founding families, like, you know, we could speak like that and on that level when I was the only mom on the team for majority of the past, you know, so far. And now we're hiring more and more moms. But I think, that just made, I don't know how I would have done it otherwise. I think like it definitely gave me, a lot more grace, a lot more empathy, and just ability to, I'm a lot more like kind of, let's go, let's get to it. Like, you know, just that sort of like mindset. And this gave me like really a whole new world that it kind of like opened up to me that definitely made me a better leader. And I think a better person as well.
Well, I love your energy. Congrats on your Series A. I can't wait to see what Tiny Organics does. Where can we find you online?
tinyorganics.com. And we've created a code today for Tiny Loves MOAC for 40% off as well.
Oh, thank you. I'll put that in the show notes. I really appreciate it. Well, thank you, Betsy, for everything. I loved hearing your story and your energy and everything. So thank you, and good luck with everything.
Thanks so much. Me too.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Mommy's on a Call. Your support means the absolute world to me. You can find the show notes for this episode and other goodies over at mommysonacall.com. And if you enjoyed this episode or have gotten value from the podcast, I would be so grateful if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review so that we can reach and empower more moms all over the world together. Thank you so much again, Mommy Pod, and I will see you here next time.